What's our agenda today?
Well, I had a moment of zen at about 4 o'clock in the morning last night, and I really couldn't get back to sleep afterwards. It's not a very complex idea, but I think it's going to be sort of the thing that makes us understand how we're going to get, much, much bigger. And, for most people, most of their capital is in some sort of retirement plan. The ultra wealthy, that's not the case. They may have $1 million 401k, then they have $6 million of financial assets and real estate and so on and so forth. But for the masses, what are called qualified retirement plans, and they come in many forms: 401ks, IRAs, 457 plans, Keoghs, Simples, SEPs, etc. They're all effectively the same thing. And nearly everything you do with them routes you into stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. And as I like to joke on TikTok, it's like burgers and fries. It's sort of all the same shit. Okay. So, and you can buy crypto, as we've all talked about, and I made a couple TikToks, and you guys know, you can buy crypto with on some of the exchanges. Like Kraken has a couple relationships with a couple custodians. So you have to come through a custodian that has a relationship with an exchange, and then you can buy the normal cryptos that everybody knows and loves, from Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Litecoin, all the big ones. So that includes Gemini. Gemini has a relationship with IRA Financial. Well, what I'm talking about is not just the common cryptocurrencies, but how do we get to other things that are tokenized, right? So that's like the whole DAO squared story. So how do we take that money? So over the last week and really over the weekend, we're going to have our first major investor make that transaction through a Roth conversion. And this is a relatively small part of his portfolio. He's deeply knowledgeable about Ethereum. He runs his own validator. He knows more about Ethereum than we do. So what I did is I sent a contact email to IRA Financial so that he can execute on that conversion. And what we'll do is we'll create the paperwork that does a private placement. Now, don't get lost in the jargon. This isn't. So Travis, if you and a couple friends wanted to buy, good, how are you? If you and a couple friends wanted to get like one big investor and buy a big ugly house outside of Vancouver or something like, well, Vancouver's probably the wrong place because real estate's so expensive, or maybe in a small town, you'd make an LLC, you'd find some investors, they'd open an account with one of these custodians. They'd have a series of paperwork which would request the money to come in to the custodian, and then it would be owned by your LLC. Let's call it Fawcett Enterprises or something like that. And then you go buy this, 4-bedroom apartment house. So it's not terribly complicated. It's just a little bit more complicated than opening an IRA with Charles Schwab. All the same stuff applies. But for our purposes, it's a difficult process to have any token listed on any of the major exchanges, right? You have to have a certain market cap. Travis, you and I have been talking about posting on Coin Market Cap and Masario, I think it is. And that's where you like hold up your information and say, this is who we are, this is how many coins there are, et cetera, et cetera. But to get on an exchange is a much bigger process. So the question becomes like, well, how would you get these tokenized entities in this world of these self-directed custodians? So what I came up with, I don't know, it just hit me. It's somewhat obvious, but sometimes the obvious is the hard part. Is what we could do is we could have people. Our first 3 investors of size are all from Texas for whatever reason. I think they just like the story. But let's say someone from Austin, or yeah, let's just do Austin. Let's say they want to make a crypto, sort of a venture capital fund for Austin. And there's 27 millennials and Generation Z people that want to use their IRA money to do that. Follow me? And they want to go, instead of doing it themselves, they want to use our process. And so what they could do is if we could get Dow squared through a private placement, which I just described, or if we get Dow squared on Gemini, they could buy Dow squared on Gemini, and then through the process of connecting with us, ask us to generate that token for the DAO that they want to create. You follow me? So this is the, excuse me. So this is the mothership idea of, like, you have this big central hub of capital, which then gives birth to little smaller, it's, like R2D2 and C3PO, like leaving the big ship to go to Alderaan, right? It sort of like takes flight out of the bigger entity, because there's no way to get, so if you look at the big exchanges like Gemini or Kraken, or, there's a dozen of them, right? Once you're on there, you have, billions of dollars can come at you, right? Especially if you have a good story. Uniswap, on the other hand, which I love, is permissionless. So I think what we're getting at here is, that's the background story of how tokenized DAOs can sort of get born out of some bigger entity so that we can use retirement assets. But I think what we're going to do, and I talked to Jack about this over the weekend, is DAO squared is this pure utility token that will only work with Ethereum and will be listed on Uniswap. And it's not very hard to list on Uniswap at all. And we actually talked yesterday about what those prices would be. We'd set a price range, 10,000 tokens or something like that, just to get started. So then we want to make this other regulatory possibilities to the same token. And Jack and I now refer to that as DAO cubed. So, and they would be exchangeable. Hey, Jack, you're coming in just at the right time. We're doing the DAO squared to DAO cubed thing. So I think what we're sort of like engineering talk, we're moving from present state to future state. The future state is to get sort of the new and improved DAO squared onto one of the major exchanges, probably Gemini. And that may, that's a considerable effort. I don't know what the market cap has to be, but that thought process of how, like, we migrate until you can stand up, and Bruno can as an entity, as the group of us can stand up and say, we have now pierced the dike of the retirement plan industry for tokenized DAOs. Not just one, not three, not we have a couple ideas, perpetual creation of them, right? So if you think about it, like behind that, Paul Tudor Jones pointed out, and I didn't know this number till I heard him say it, there's in asset management in all of its forms, private equity, hedge funds, mutual funds, et cetera, there's $88 trillion. Now, whenever you have a startup, one of the fun things you do is like say, hey, let's see if we can get 1% of that. If you were making new toaster ovens, you'd try to get 1% of the toaster ovens, right? Well, in this business, 1% of these numbers is just, bizarre how big it can be. But what we need to do is just create the plumbing, the regulatory structures, the technology, and to Lyle's point, the security. Now, the good news is things like Uniswap and Gemini already have, and Kraken, tremendous track records. We don't need to custody anything. We just need to make sure the right stuff gets to the right place. There's an old adage in finance that you're really just delivering the right amount of money to the right place at the right time. It's not really like you're trying to do something clever. You just make sure that everything shows up. You're like sort of like UPS or FedEx. But Jack, you missed the early part. I was just pointing out, this isn't terribly complicated, but in order for people to use retirement assets for, let's call them new tokens. Let's say somebody wants to do something specific to like a zip code, like in the small town that I grew up in, they could invest through Dow squared or Dow cubed, because they're really the same thing. And then they could inform us through that process that they would like that capital to be invested in a new token. Let's call it 15501, where I grew up. Okay. And then we say, okay, that capital is committed to this new thing, which would never trade on a major exchange because it's too small. So what I'm trying to get at is like, how does tokenization and retirement assets go together? And I think some version of that is how that gets started. I think someday some custodian, and may have happened already, I'm just not aware of it, will allow assets that trade on Uniswap to be part of a retirement account. But see, they have a certain threshold of due diligence that they have to go through. So you follow me on this? Like if you're a custodian with people's IRA money, they don't do a financial analysis of what you're investing in, but they do see that all the paperwork makes sense and there's a paper trail, et cetera. And I don't think we're to the point yet where Kingdom Trust is just going to let you buy any token on Uniswap. I just don't think that makes any sense. But there'll probably be ways for that to happen. I know I just laid a lot on you. Maybe I'll just shut up and let people ask questions. Particularly you, Lyle, because you're the security guy.
Well, most of my questions are going to be, I think I need to just sit down with Mel and or hang out with Mel on a conference and nail out some questions I've got, more of security related with how the operations of the Bruno entity would operate and such.
Yep.
But looking at the bigger, what's popped into my head right now with regards to what you've put out there is I'm curious how we will, with regards to a DAO and, someone puts in 10K, 100K into IRA financial. How are we going to assign the appropriate tokens so that they get their, voting rights in regards to what that DAO does? That I'm kind of wondering a little bit more on the process and mechanics down the road.
So we started on this last week. So I'll take a shot at lining that up for you if you don't mind.
No, go for it.
So we have a token that has no paperwork behind it, right? It's digital. Hold on, here comes the thing. I guess I could. So the retirement industry is based on, for the most part, it's based on mutual funds. And, that's a paper system. It's 80 years old. And you're supposed to hand people a prospectus and all that stuff. So I did that for 20 some years. And now the brave new world of digital assets comes out where everything's extremely fast and somebody can send Jack Ethereum into the wallet and we shoot him tokens right back, right? And with his address, and one of the things I want to work on with Jack and with you, Lyle, too, is like when we do that digital transaction, what do we know about the other guy? Do we have to know anything, or we just have to know his address? In terms of a retirement plan, we have to know that it's his retirement plan, or somebody has to fill in that gap, okay? So to your point, Lyle, that's exactly what we're doing. So we have this We have this purely digital thing, which doesn't work with a custodian because they can't track, they have to know your name, serial number, social security number, your beneficiaries, all that stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to create that through a paper trail. And our first investor is going to be invested in Bruno Capital directly. Follow me? He's effectively a partner. So he'll have that documentation. He's really going to buy into two things. He's going to be a partner, and he's going to be directly, and this guy happens to be highly knowledgeable about Ethereum. We don't have any questions of whether or not this makes sense for us to do this, because it's a good thing to have a partner who's very knowledgeable about Ethereum, right? This isn't hard. Well, at the same token, we're going to send him sort of for free, or we're making this one free. It's a 2-for-1 sale. He's a partner, and he's going to get the appropriate tokens for the amount of capital coming in. Does that make sense? And this is what I explained to him in an email and in a phone call yesterday at 10:30. He got it. In fact, we're going to make it even just a wee bit sexier as sort of a thank you, and just give him a little chunk of Austin and San Antonio as well. It's just because it's a considerable amount of money. He's very knowledgeable. He was very, I think he's not going to be on our Zoom meetings, but it's almost like I could call him for advice. Okay. So we're going to bring him into the system through that process. So what I was describing earlier is sort of a more advanced, sort of a meeting of those two things. If we could get DAO squared onto Gemini. That's how we sort of cross the two systems, the paper system, which is semi-electronic, with the purely digital system. And, like a lot of things in life, this is how you walk before you run. None of what I just described is terribly difficult. I mean, I talked to my attorney yesterday. We exchanged a couple emails. He's going to amend my LLC document for Bruno Capital. And it's just, I mean, I've done these things for like the last 10 years. So the big effort would be is to get DAO squared on Gemini. And I don't really know what's involved in that. I haven't taken much time. I just know that they want a certain amount of liquidity, certain market cap, and so on and so forth. But Doge is on fucking Coinbase. So like, we should be able to beat. I mean, there's a lot of cryptos out there that really don't have a lot underneath them. And ultimately what we're doing is creating an asset that is going to build various staking pools, right? And they can do other things after that. But for right now, it's just a big Ethereum project. It's just a big application of Ethereum into all these new systems, into retirement accounts, into custodial accounts, etc. So, but back to your point, Lyle, the good news in all this is we don't have to do any custody. We just have to make sure the stuff lands at the right place. And, they've already made these wonderful systems. I mean, Gemini has taken in an enormous amount of venture capital money. I don't remember what it is, but they're very, very well endowed. They're insured, they're registered with the state of New York, etc. That's a good place to shoot somebody's tokens or Ethereum or any other digital asset. So I think I just sort of laid out the next page or two to the white paper. It's sort of the natural progression of, and I think we'll wake up in sometime this summer and we're going to hear that, other entities are already working on this. It's not a big deal. It's such an enormous industry, the retirement industry, that, it's going to take, lots of different people approaching it in different ways. I will tell you that the custody for retirement assets and management are two different things, right? So like if you open an IRA with Fidelity, and for obvious reasons, Fidelity wants to make that easy so that you can go invest your money with Fidelity mutual funds, but they have to be two separate entities, right? Just thinking out loud of how, how everything works together. Any other, Jack, do you want to talk a little bit about the prospects of us trading on Uniswap?
Sure, of course. So currently, I'm still trying to find the best sort of ratio to list it with. Of course, I'm trying to pretty much just use as little, pretty much as little Ethereum as possible. So actually, here, let me see if I can screen share, because I think it'll kind of help you guys get an idea of share screen. Did that work? No. Oh, never mind. I don't know. It said I can't. It said the thing won't let me. But anyways, so if anything, if we would add a lot of liquidity by giving it a variable range, like if we would allow it to sort of take on a price of its own, then it needs more Ethereum behind it. But if we kind of lock it into a tighter range, then we need less Ethereum and more DAO on Uniswap. So that's what I'm definitely leaning towards, is putting it at a tighter range than you would do for creating a new liquidity pool of any other type of token.
So after we talked yesterday, I had to drive home from, we literally took lambs to the livestock auction. So it was about a 3-hour drive home after I talked to you. And, I just had some windshield time to knock this about. And I said, talking to you, and I've said it in some of the TikToks, that like, let's get on Uniswap, and who cares if it goes to a penny or it doesn't trade at all. I actually don't believe that. I need to quit doing that. I need to quit talking like that, because what we're doing is more structured than that. So we don't need to be just like, oh, we're just, just going to throw it out there and see what happens. So if we're building, we obviously can reference the price of Ethereum up to the, microsecond.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to build staking pools, these are tokens that have real assets underneath them. And that asset is Ethereum, and it's staked Ethereum. And we're on the verge in, 3 weeks of 1559, which is a major, event in the history of Ethereum. We shouldn't, I shouldn't say to you guys, like, who knows what will happen on Uniswap. What we should do is just list it with a small discount.
Mm-hmm.
Just to encourage people to, like, I don't think a lot of people who listen to us have an account, have traded on Uniswap, but we got to say, look, we've been talking about Hayden Adams. We've been talking about Uniswap. It was made with $100,000. It's worth 25 billion. It trades on a daily basis the same as Coinbase and has 33 employees. So we're sort of like fans of how this comes together. And we put it at a 10 or 15% discount. So, if Ethereum's trading right now, I didn't even look recently, it's a little over $2, right? So people send us one ETH. People send us one ETH and they get 1,000 tokens. Under.
So let me actually
So
try that.
74, but
so 100% discount, that ratio would be about 110 or 1,150 DAO2 for 1 Ethereum.
mm-hmm.
So, and then we'll limit the max price to, okay, so actually at that, we could list about 8,000 DAO2 coins on Uniswap.
Okay.
For about 350 worth of Ethereum as the liquidity. So, and I mean, really, it would be great, because really the only way we're losing Ethereum is if someone had DAO2 to take their Ethereum back.
Right.
So if anything, we would actually just be helping ourselves raise more Ethereum. So
Right. We become like a
Mhm.
market maker, and we go, the transactions go in both directions. Yeah.
Mhm.
And what would the price be? So we're selling at a discount. It's Ethereum's 1975 right now, and 15% lower than that is 10 would be $20.
I'm sorry, what'd you say about 1950 right now?
1970. It's real. Price of Ethereum is like 1976. So whatever 15% less than that is. So 85% of 1976 is what?
Oh,
Times
that's about
1976.
300.
No, I mean what would the price
Price at
be?
a 15% discount.
Discount is like 1680. So what we would be doing is
Yeah.
encouraging people to come on there and provide liquidity. In other words, just start trading. You get a little bit of a discount. Who knows what it'll do? You could put it in a range from, 15% discount to, let's say, $4.
Yeah, well,
per-
yeah, I pretty much did that. So of course the unbounded end is all the way at a tenth of a DAO is equal to 1 Ethereum, which is, it's out there, of course, but that's pretty much the
Oh, I see.
unbounded area.
Yeah,
Mhm.
in your head, you want to go back to U.S. dollars, but that's not really what's going on. It's ETH
It's
DAO,
yeah,
ETH DAO.
it's really interesting how it does actually play with itself, but
When you listen to
it's
like
something that
real hedge fund traders, most of us walk around. We don't never even think about any price that's not in U.S. dollars, right? A price means you price it to $1, but real traders think like oil in terms of euros, and in crypto you have like Ethereum versus Litecoin. So there's like 13,000 trading pairs on Uniswap at any one time.
Mhm.
And it sort of plays with your head a little bit that you have to come out of your US dollar centric world and say like, no, wait, how does this, how do these prices set going forward? What happens if the price of Ethereum goes up 5x? What happens to the price of DAO squared? Well, if it's based on staking pools, it should follow it directly with it. I don't think a lot of people get that.
Mhm.
So, it's like you can invest in gold, or you can invest in our big pile of gold, but which is actually slightly levered, sort of like, this is a pretty good way to think about it. You could buy gold, or you could buy one of the junior miners, literally like a small gold miner in Quebec, let's say. And when you do the analysis, you're not just buying a chunk of gold underground. Their cost of production is whatever it is. So as the price of gold moves up, their earnings moved up as a multiple of that, right? So that's sort of what we're doing with DAO Squared. It's almost like a gold mine versus the price of gold.
Mhm.
Especially if
No,
it had,
I think that's
follow
very
me?
fair.
Yeah. Yeah, you're a finance major, Jack. You should be able to follow that. But anyways, well, cool. Let's do it.
All
I
right,
have a couple
then, yeah.
people in the queue that want to send us some more Ethereum and get some more tokens, and I'll keep, I'll bang the table with them and say, look, folks, we're trying to get on Uniswap. We think this is pretty significant.
Mhm.
Then once we stand up and say, hey, we're on Uniswap and it's trading at a discount, or it's wobbling around like this, feel free to go in and buy it and hold it, or go in and trade it, or whatever. People are always looking for things to trade, right? We're like in a
Mhm.
trading frenzy. I think it's one of the reasons why the price of Ethereum has been getting beat up. Jack, you and I talked about this, is
Mhm.
there's just goofy amounts of leverage in the system. So if the
Mhm.
market leaves a fart and the price goes down a little bit, people have to sell out because they're just levered through
Leveraged
the
all the way out.
nose, and they're
Mhm.
probably not big professional traders that know how to deal with that situation. There's just so much speculation. I mean, from people buying meme stocks with their retirement accounts to Robinhood to crypto. it's just endemic to the whole system. Thanks, Jenny. See you. Well, cool. Let's make that a priority of getting on Uniswap, getting some more Ethereum into the wallet. We should talk about, as we're handling more Ethereum, how much we need for immediate use and trading, and how much we can put in cold storage, which I've announced before would be Gemini cold storage. And I can even reach out to Gemini Institutional and say, hey, here are the couple of things we're working on. Can you give us some help? And, I'm sure we'll get a good reception. What else? Phone call with Matt Kaufman is the 22nd. Our first investor, Ron from Texas, sent me a text over the weekend that the first Wyoming-based DAO has happened, and I texted back. I said, "Shit, I wanted to be the first one, but that's all right. It's bragging rights and so forth." But we'll have we'll have a considerable footprint. This is being recorded. This is going up on YouTube.
Yes, I'm gonna send it to Travis. He'll put some magic to it and then get it up on the YouTube channel. Yep.
Okay. One of the other things that Landon and I talked about was I can't say the word for some reason, a Calendly account, so that people can reach out to me, but also some sort of membership thing where they get a deeper level of knowledge about what we're doing. So my question to you, do you guys know, could we put these YouTube videos under a subscription agreement with YouTube? So you have to be a member in order to, in other words, if this is the inner sanctum, it's reasonable that we would charge something for you to be able to hear what happens internally, right? Because you're just getting firsthand knowledge.
You're up to date on what we're doing.
You're up to date. If you get a little bit of information of when a token is being listed somewhere, and if you want to trade on it, I don't think that's illegal. That's just, you're just knowledge. We're not trading securities here. These are utility tokens. And the operations of the entity are what they are. So that's something I'm going to work with Landon on. What else? I've also thought of doing a podcast, but that's a bigger commitment. No, I think it's a big deal that people, particularly if they're starting to think about putting some serious capital to work, to be able to go back and just look at our internal operations, be like, yeah, it appears to be what they're working on. Here's the conversations, here's the issues, etc. What else should we bring up at the moment? Mel, you and I want to talk about, I think later in the summer, early fall, working on a plan for recruiting. Sort of the digital Edward Jones kind of a thing.
Yeah,
and Jack, I was hoping you could do a little bit of a deep dive on 1559. I know the three or four big bullet points, but beyond that.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday, but that's something I'm still very happy to do. That would be no problem.
Great.
We should probably close up the meeting, and anybody have any questions, shoot them through email, and we'll maybe even structure our next meeting. This was good. This was a meaty.
Yeah,
meaty meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, we're no longer talking about opening the store. The store is open. The pizzas are being made, and we're trying to refine the process and make better pizza.
Make better pizzas.
Yep. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
All right, yeah.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.